Hey guys, so today was a beautifully rainy day and I figured what better way to spend the day inside than to make a video tutorial of how I turn my graphics and sketches into planner stickers. The graphics that I'm drawing today are actually pretty simple, so feel free to follow along. For this project, I'll be using Copic markers to create my graphics, but feel free to use any media that you like, be it traditional or digital. Right here, I'm just showing you all the markers I selected to make the graphics, but in the end, I actually only ended up using Y08 and E41. For the paper, I'm actually just using standard printer paper. It's not the super low quality, I think it's 28 pound and the extra bright white version. And I also have a piece of marker paper that I'll be putting behind it to prevent any bleed from getting onto my desk. I really like how the Copic markers interact with this paper, but of course you can use whatever you'd like. Before I start drawing anything, I like to do a few sketches, and these were just my first rough drafts of the chicks I was going to make. I played around with different colors and lettering and designs, and ultimately I decided that I like this one right here, where the chick had a little circle behind it with the number. So that's what we'll be making today. If you're following along, these chicks are crazy easy to make. All you need to do is make a medium-sized circle for the chick's head, and then connecting to it, just make a slightly larger circle for the body. Go ahead and make several of them so that you have a variety of chicks in a variety of different poses. It's always good to make more graphics than you think you need, because if you mess up at a later step, or if something doesn't look as good as you thought it would in your final design, then you'll have some options. Now that we have our little chick blobs done, I'm going to take the lighter color and just make some circles and some different shapes that I think I might want to put behind the chicks. The great part about making graphics is we'll be able to digitally combine them on the computer. So I'm just going to make my circles under the chicks, which gives me more flexibility and also prevents me from accidentally ruining my chicks by trying to need to get the colors in exactly the right spot behind the chick blob. Once we're finished, I'm going to now take my Sakura Micron pen in the color Sepia, so it's a dark brown, and start adding in the details for the chicks. We're just going to go in and add a little triangle for the beak, 2 dots for the eyes, and some Y shapes for the legs. I'm also going to add a little curve for the wing, which you'll see in a second here. I didn't like how the first chick turned out, but not to worry, we have plenty of other ones that will turn out a lot better. I really like this simple doodly color blocked style, and I'm feeling really inspired after making these to do all sorts of other animals. I'm probably going to fill an entire page in my sketchbook doing just that. Seriously, are these not adorable? Now that we have our graphics done, we're going to scan it into the computer. But first, you can see here the importance of why I use the marker paper under the printer paper. The Copic markers do bleed through the printer paper, so just be sure to protect your surface. Anywho, now we're going to just take our graphics and load them into the scanner, hit scan, and when it's finished, we're going to transfer it over to the computer. Go ahead and open your graphic in your favorite photo editing program. I'm using Adobe Photoshop here, but if you don't have a copy, you can actually get a comparative software online for free, which is called GIMP. GIMP is free and open source, and I'll leave the link to it in the description box below. Now, Photoshop and GIMP do have a bit of a learning curve, so the purpose of this tutorial is not to teach you how to use Photoshop, so unfortunately I'm not going to go in depth as to everything that I'm doing. If you do have a specific question, then leave a comment below and I'll try my best to answer it, or I'll make a video in the future. That being said, the very first step that I'm doing is removing the white background. The reason that we want to do this is so that we can put the colored circle behind the chick. I'm just using the magic wand tool to do this because I don't need it to be exactly perfect. There are other methods to remove the white in a way that preserves your edges exactly, but because we're going to be printing these chicks on white paper anyways, it's not all that important that we have an exactly perfect edge. It's also not that important that I'm selecting around each chick instead of just selecting a square. The reason that I'm doing that is just I noticed that my threshold wasn't quite high enough and there was a lot of little black specks around the page, so I'm just trying to reduce the amount of unnecessary pixels that get into our chick image. You can see what I mean about the magic wand tool not being perfect around the edge by when I paste the chicks on top of one another in the other document. you can see that there's a little bit of a white halo around each chick. For this particular design, I don't think the halo looks bad, but if you were doing something and you wanted to have a completely sharp edge, like I said, you just need to use a different method for removing the white background. Anyways, the next step is just to arrange your graphics on the page and get the sheet looking how you like. If you were just printing out the chicks, this would be a great time to stop. I just have all the chicks lined up nicely, but because we are going to be adding the circles behind them and also adding numbers, I need to make them smaller and make sure that I can fit 31 of them on the page because I want to have the numbers 1 through 31. Once I get the chicks generally in the right position, then I just go ahead and grab the circle graphic. I started with the egg here, but I wasn't quite fond of how it looked with some of the chicks, so I went for the circle. I'm simply going to copy and paste the circle and position it behind each chick. Now I could do this to just each of the 8 different designs, but I want it to look a little more handmade and a little cuter, so I'm just going to do each one individually so that they're not all the same. Personally, this is my absolute favorite part of the design process, is trying to get all of the stickers positioned correctly on the page. These chicks actually worked really nicely because I was able to get them to fit like pieces of a puzzle. I love the game Tetris, so it's just so satisfying being able to get all your stickers aligned perfectly and making the amount of white space as minimal as possible. Once all of the chicks are aligned to your liking, I just go in with the numbers and get them all laid out on the page in roughly the correct location. Be sure to change the font to the correct size, just so that you have a general idea of how they're going to look. Once they're all laid out, then you can go ahead and select all of the layers and change the font and the font color and come up with the final look and feel of the sticker. If you do change any of these, you'll probably need to go back in and readjust all of them so that they are in the correct position again. Here's an up-close shot of the final sticker design. I really like how simple and handmade they look, and I just think they are adorable. Now what we want to do is remove the white background layer and save it as a transparent PNG file. You'll want to save it as a PNG and not a JPEG because PNG not only maintains transparency, but it also is lossless, which means you'll end up with a higher quality print. Then what you'll want to do is open your PNG file in Silhouette Studio or whatever your cutting software is for your cutting machine. To make the cut lines, I'm just going to be using the built-in trace functionality. I'm just going to erase the parts that I don't want, and otherwise these would be perfect. However, you can see on the cuts that the little legs are very thin and probably going to tear and bend when it gets cut through the machine. So to remedy that, I'm going to be using the built-in offset feature just to make a little extra padding around the cut lines, giving everything a little bit of a white border, making the cuts thicker. I'm not an expert when it comes to the offset tool, so there's probably an easier way to do what I want to do, but the offset tool does add both an inner and an outer offset to your cut line. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove the inner one so that I'm only left with the beautiful outer one. You can also see on some of the designs, like right here, that the legs are so close together that it just leaves a little sliver between them. This means that when the cutting machine tries to go up and down to go between the legs, it's going to go over the same part and really just leave a tiny little messy sliver. So to remedy that, I'm just deleting the extra points of the cuts so that it's nice and smooth and it gets rid of that unnecessary cut line. When your cut lines are good, just go ahead and put the image back on top and zoom in really close and nice so that you can make sure that your designs are centered within the cuts. Now that we have all the Kiss Cut stickers done, we're actually going to add a cut line as well for the final page. This is going to be what our final sheet looks like. Because we want this cut to go all the way through the page, we are going to change the line color. That's how in Silhouette Studio we can tell it to do one line only going halfway down the page to do the kiss cut, and another line to go all the way through the page, actually separating it from the paper. Now we're almost ready to print and cut our stickers, but first we need to add registration marks to the page and make sure we have everything laid out nicely. Now I could just print one sheet, but I don't like to waste paper, so I'm just going to go ahead and print 4 of them on the same page. I had to adjust some of the sizes of the overall sheet so that I could fit 4 of them within the boundaries. It's critical that all of your lines stay within the red boundaries, otherwise they won't be cut. Once you have your sheet finished, you'll want to print. Be sure to put sticker paper in your printer and change the settings in Silhouette Studio to match the paper type. Obviously this will depend on your printer, but I usually select mid-weight for matte paper and heavy glossy for glossy sticker paper. You can use whatever printer you have. I use a laser printer, but an inkjet would work equally as well. Next, go ahead and turn on your Silhouette Cameo or whatever cutting machine you use. Then take your paper from the printer and align it on the cutting mat. Remember to line the registration mark square up to the top left-hand corner and make sure the paper is smooth and stuck firmly on the page. Insert it into the machine following the machine's directions. Now we're going to return to Silhouette Studio and change the settings for the cut marks. I like to select all of my cuts and move them slightly to the right and slightly up. I've found that my machine is calibrated so that it always prints a little downward and to the left, so by calibrating this, I'm able to get more accurate lines. Next, you'll want to adjust the advanced cut settings so that it kiss cuts first and then cuts all the way through the page. Unfortunately, each machine is different, and even the different blades that you use in the same machine can cause your settings to vary. You should play around with your cut settings using a spare piece of sticker paper so that you can determine what the best settings are for you. Once your settings look good, go ahead and hit send to Silhouette and the machine will immediately start reading the registration marks and finding the right location on the page to start cutting. It can definitely take a little bit of practice to get accurate cuts around your design. It mostly comes down to having really good lighting. I actually have a lot of articles on my blog about how to print and cut planner stickers, so if you experience difficulty or have more questions about any of the steps that you saw in this video, then definitely check out the link in the description box below, which will have more information about the entire process. You can see right here that after the machine finishes kiss cutting all of the designs, it will then go in and cut around each sheet all the way through the page. Once finished, eject it from the machine and peel off the excess. Go ahead and then remove each of the individual sticker sheets from the page. If your mat has any sort of stickiness left to it, it's inevitable that your sheets will curl a little bit. I recommend taking them off at a diagonal angle to minimize the curl, and also if you just hold them together and wiggle them backwards a bit, it does help as well. I have found that over time, even the worst curls will mellow out. And with that, our sticker sheets are finished. Seriously guys, how cute did these turn out? I am so happy with them. You can use the methods you've learned here to make any sort of planner stickers. I like to make number stickers like these to use in my bullet journal because it makes it really easy to add a bit of character and fun to my bullet journal without needing to spend hours decorating and drawing things myself. I actually have a whole collection of bullet journal stickers in my Etsy shop, so I'll leave a link to that in the description box below if you're interested. I was intending on just using these stickers for the purposes of this tutorial, but I think they turned out so darn cute that I'm actually going to use them as the April freebie in my shop. There's no coupon code required. All purchases in April will automatically receive a free sheet of these little chick numbers in their order. I really hope that you found this tutorial helpful, and if you have any questions, like I said, definitely check out my blog post, which has a lot more in-depth information about the entire process. And if you do make any graphics or stickers using my tutorial, then definitely leave a comment below because I'd love to see what you make. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see y'all later. Bye.